All right, good afternoon. We are live here. It's Wednesday, and we're coming up towards Christmas. And joined here with Mitch Friedman with the Pivot Lending Group. As we kind of do our regular meetings monthly, right, to talk about what's going on in the mortgage world, because it's a real partnership that we have to have on the real estate side of it, right? Very few transactions are actually cash overall, right? A large percentage of that actually comes down to somebody getting a loan, right? So,
Correct.
Mitch, introduce yourself for those that don't know you.
Sure.
Give us a quick, bio or background, and why you're joining me today.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the intro and the invite again. Our goal is monthly updates that are pertinent to the market. And I think the one we're going to talk about today is very, very pertinent. So good timing on that. Happy holidays to you and your family and everybody who's listening or will be listening in the future.
Yeah, thanks.
And
You too.
thank you. My name is Mitch Friedman. I work at Pivot Lending Group. We're a local mortgage banker, which means we're a direct lender out of Littleton, Colorado. So we are truly here and local. I've been doing mortgage banking in Colorado for 28 years, and then about 4 years prior to that in Los Angeles, California. And I've seen the quite a few changes in our industry, but really the basis of mortgage banking has remained the same from a foundation standpoint of what criteria do we look at when someone gets qualified to buy a house. Today's not that topic, but it could be another one. However, it hasn't changed. So the good news is someone bought a home 10 years ago and they went through the traditional process. The process today is the same as far as information on qualifying. And the market's been fantastic. Mortgage rates have stayed down. Mr. Powell spoke today and didn't really freak the market out too much. I just finished that meeting, so I was listening intently to see if I had any concerns of calling people to lock in their rates. And they stayed very stable today. So hopefully it'll remain that way for the rest of this year and going into next year.
Yeah, good. And that's a huge thing, right? As people ask about rates,
Mm-hmm.
most people are unaware rates are changing on a consistent basis throughout the day, let
Right.
alone like if you're calling at the beginning of the week and the end of the same week, you might get different information from the same lender, right? It's changing that frequently.
Correct. It's a very fluid market. And with technology, that's what's caused that to be able to happen. It's favorable when rates go down. It's less favorable when rates go up. So the goal is timing and commit to a rate as early as you can just to take that uncertainty off the table when you're buying a house.
So, when the rates go up, can we go back to low technology, old school, right? The information doesn't happen as quick. And that way we could just, okay, well, the rates went up, but, it takes a week for the publications to get out and let the world know.
Certainly. It's true. It's true. And it's, like I said, it's good and bad, depending on what side of the fence you're on and whether you are against, if you're refinancing, you have a lot more time to wait out the rates. If you're buying, you're typically in a 30 to 40-day contract where time becomes your enemy on when do you lock a rate in. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So our topic today, and as you and I were brainstorming about this, we kind of talked about a couple different options, is an interesting one because if you would have asked me a week ago, said, what are the golden rules as it comes to getting a mortgage for a house? And I would say, okay, well, continue to pay your bills, don't incur new debt, don't change jobs was one of them, right?
correct.
It's on that list, right? Don't do anything
Mhm.
with your job. Um, but it turns out there may be an option here, right? A great new opportunity comes my way to change careers, and maybe it's a lot more money or a little more money, or it's a higher quality of life, whatever that looks like. Sounds like that's an option, right? I could potentially change jobs and not lose out on buying a house.
Correct. And as we were touching on a little earlier, I think because of people working from home quite a bit, they get to think more about their current job and their satisfaction in that job. And there may be those moments of, I think I've come to a point in time where I really want to explore what else might be out there. Oops, I'm buying a house right now as well. Is that the best idea to consider? And the good news is I do coach our clients to say, if that should come up, I'm talking about it more and more these days, please call me first before you make any decisions so we can talk through what that new job would look like.
Yeah.
But moving jobs either prior to being under contract, which would be the better time to do it, or I have had people move jobs during being under contract when they have a very tight time frame to be able to close and qualify, still be able to close on that home or purchase a home soon thereafter with the new job change, should they decide to do that. And there are some variables like you touched on as far as, is it for more income? Is it in the same line of work? Are you relocating? When does the job start? Are you a graduate from college and you have an offer letter to start a new job? When does that start, and when can we use that income to qualify? So there's a lot of different variables that are very, much more flexible, I think, than people might think. And that's why we're talking about it today.
Yeah, I think, folks ask me kind of frequently in there, and I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. And what I don't know is the mortgage side of it. That's why we've got Mitch here. So
Mhm.
Mitch can be that expert and I get a chance to be good at what it is that I do. About changing jobs, or hey, I just changed jobs. I got to wait 2 years before I can buy a house, or I got to wait 6 months, or whatever that looks like. And my answer to that almost always is, well, maybe let's have a conversation with Mitch and find out for sure, right? Because your
Right.
scenario may line up as such that you can actually still purchase a home and move forward.
Correct. And that's my job, is to get those details to help establish whether or not they should do that prior to looking to purchase a home. There's moments when I tell them it's not going to work because somebody's doing a more dramatic career change as opposed to a lateral move, but for more money, but same line of work or similar line of work. Those are two different considerations when we have that conversation. So I'll be very honest with people. I mean, I feel bad to say no sometimes when it's a really good opportunity, but they really want to buy a house. So
Yeah.
the hope would be, could that be postponed, that new job, until after they find a home or close on a home, as long as they still feel like they can afford the payments after they buy the home. Right? We don't want them changing jobs and go, oh my God, I just changed jobs and I have a house payment that isn't as affordable as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Take a
So
job for less money. That's going to impact how
it
things
could,
work.
yeah. Usually that happens if there's future potential for higher income,
Yeah.
i.e., through commissions and things like that. Um, but it's been, again, more and more of that happening, and more of my initial conversation when I'm pre-approving or pre-qualifying a new client is, do you now have any considerations about changing jobs? And I used to never ask that question.
Yeah.
I would say, if that comes up, please let's talk. But now I'm asking that in advance of, because it is so prevalent right now.
Yeah, people examining all sorts of things and the importance of the relevance of if finances, things that they've done, the house, some of them their spouse, right? They've made a decision to choose a different spouse, and the upgrade different aspects of their life, right?
Right, right.
Um, so right, let's talk through my scenario when I first got into real estate. So I was in the motorcycle industry. It was a W-2 job. Had been there for 7.5, almost 8 years. Now, when I made the move to get into real estate, that would have impacted my ability to purchase a home or to refinance. Is that fair?
Yes, that would have caused concern in qualifying with usable income to qualify and verifiable. You just became self-employed. You were a W-2 salary or wage or hourly wage earner. So the guidelines are completely different for someone who's self-employed, and the tenure or how long you need to be self-employed is different than being transferring jobs from one to another and going from salary to salary.
Yeah.
Correct.
So opportunity would have come up for me to move from, the dealership that I was at and the position there to, a higher level position at another store.
Mm-hmm.
That may not have impacted. So what are some of the simple ways that would say, okay, this is probably likely? Still talk to Mitch before you do it, before you execute it. But this is probably a likely scenario where I could change jobs
Mm-hmm.
and still be able to purchase a house.
Sure. So a couple different ways. So let's say somebody, I'll do a recent client. I'll have to think about it real quick. She was a graphic designer for one company, and she had another opportunity that came up to become a graphic design for another company. Two completely different industries of the companies themselves, but she's still a graphic designer. So her concern was, I'm going to a different industry. Will that impact my ability to use my income to qualify? And the answer was, as you might expect, no, because she's still doing the same type of work.
Yeah.
So her experience is just going to be a lateral move to another company, but there was increased income. So that's part A. Part B that I have to ask the question is what contingencies are there upon your employment verification with this new company being completed? So for example, there are things in an employee offer letter that say typically you have to pass a background check. Sometimes there's other security clearances that some people have to have. They typically always have drug testing. So there's certain things that must be met before we can actually use that income and new job if they're on the offer letter that we get, of which then we have to get a letter from the HR department or human resources that says this person has met the criteria or the conditions from the job offer letter. So we actually have a little more validating to do beyond just the offer letter, but that's my starting point, kind of my roadmap of how do we use the new job.
Yeah, a different industry, right? So if I was a graphic designer or marketing person for the motorcycle industry and then went to work for Keller Williams International as a marketing person, graphic designer, same job, different industry entirely. The income might have been still a W-2 type role, still a movable position for me to still buy a house.
Correct. Yep. We'll use the new income from the new position without any concerns at all because it's the same line of work.
Yeah.
So that's one. A very common one I deal with a lot is I work with a lot of people who have recently graduated college, whether it's undergrad or graduate programs, and they were a engineer for their training in school, and that's where they got their degree, and now they got a new job or have a job offer letter to start a new job at a engineering position. Though they have zero work history, we do get to use schooling or education time as in lieu of like employment. So what we end up getting is their diploma for graduating, as well as their school transcripts to document that they were in school at that time, taking courses in the engineering field or whatever field that they're in. And then we'll access that job offer letter. And as long as they start the new job within 60 days of the closing on the new house, we can use that income for qualifying. So they could not even start the job yet, and we can still use that income.
Yes. So
and that's a very flexible opportunity that people not necessarily know about.
Yeah, fantastic, right? It wouldn't have thought, right? I've got no job history, but I've got this history in this field because I've been studying it and learning it. For those of you smart enough to have gone to college, I didn't graduate, found a different path that worked for me, but right, able to kind of pull the trigger on something and have literally never had an income or a check come in outside of maybe a paper
Typically,
route or
sometimes
or something like that, right?
Yeah. Some people have had part-time jobs during school, or they were TAs for their graduate program, so teachers assistants, and they got some income. We would use that actually to show that they know how to earn income and earn money, but it's not the same kind of income we're using for qualifying. So that's pretty common, especially because we have CU of Boulder, we have DU Denver University. There's a lot of opportunities for those types of options to come up, and we have so many of those types of jobs here, School of Mines, and then the oil and gas industry. It's rampant. There's a lot of that takes place.
Yeah.
So that's very common. And then people relocating to the state, we're allowed to use that new job they're going to relocate to as well with the job offer letter, as long as it's a similar line of work.
Which is cool, right? It kind of brings two scenarios to mind. My wife's got some cousins that are a little bit younger, and one's graduating college, and the other is kind of in that middle, heading into probably her junior year, right? Just graduating, could, depending on a job offer, qualify to purchase a house, and has not had an adult career, an adult job yet at this point. And I just met with some folks who actually want to move to Oregon, right? They want to leave Colorado, sell their house here, move to Oregon where they don't have jobs, but they would really hate to rent for 12 months or 6 months or whatever that looks like. They want to be able to pull the trigger and buy something quick. Line up the dominoes. That's a real possibility for them.
It could be if they have something set up that may start within 60 days, but not immediately.
Yeah, right. Kind of,
Yep.
kind of pending on that move, right? Well,
Mhm.
here's an offer letter. We're excited to have you. Welcome to Oregon.
Right.
And by the way, here's a new house.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's very it's very normal, and it happens more frequently than you might think or that people think.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes people aren't aware that they can do that, so they kind of get moved to town or consider moving and say, I've got to rent for 6 months because I need to be here for 6 months with my job, and that's not totally accurate. And the unfortunate side is they didn't talk to a realtor who understands what those options are, or at least have the resources like myself to go, I think, well, let's find out before you make that decision to rent.
Yeah.
Can you purchase? And do you want to purchase? So,
I had a former boss that told me, Matt, you need to be smart enough to be ignorant. And it was about something else entirely. And I've carried that with me here to know that, okay, I don't know all the rules around the lending side of it, which I mentioned earlier. So being able to be smart enough to know that I don't know it all and ask the questions. Hey, Mitch, is this an option? Under what
right.
circumstance could this be an option? And I love that question, right? If I want to get something done, it's okay, what needs to happen in order for this to be accomplished?
Right.
And if we can
Exactly.
find that, oftentimes we can find a solution that's very doable.
Definitely. Or if not in that very moment, maybe within 90 days or 6 months, to
Yeah.
have a little roadmap in place and a game plan, where still some people think I have to be on my job for 2 years before I can buy a home, when in fact it could be 6 months.
Yeah.
And that happens quite a bit too, depending on the position or job, the line of work people are in. So let's go back to your example, coming from the motorcycle industry, getting into real estate. So the question would be, well, how long would you have needed to wait in order to obtain a traditional Fannie Mae loan or a traditional FHA government-backed loan?
Yeah,
And
let's see if I did this correctly with
okay,
how long I waited, right?
okay,
How soon could I have bought a house, Mitch?
um, probably 90 days. No, I'm joking. You would have to be in the industry. In your case, you have a license, so we would show a licensure for 2 years,
Mhm.
and then you'd have to have either shown 2 years filed income tax returns that showed sufficient income to qualify. Because many times when people are self-employed, that first year is a startup year, and there's a lot of expenses that get written off. And when we look at the tax return, that's a whole nother story. Someone says, I brought in $100,000, but I spent 90,000 to build my business. Well, the net income is $10,000, and that's all we get to use for qualifying. So we need 2 years of sufficient income to qualify. So it's really a 2 year period for the most part.
So, out of sheer curiosity, Mitch, if my income was $10,000, how much house can I qualify for?
If that was your true net income, you'd qualify for about a $3,500 a month house payment, which would be about a $700,000 property with 10 or 15% down.
No, I
I
mean,
mean,
if I had $10,000 was my income, right?
I'm sorry. I thought you said $100,000.
No,
Oh,
10.
$10,000. I don't think you'd finance them for a motorcycle at that point.
Yeah,
You
it's
can
gonna have
use
to
a
be
third,
really cheap.
a third of that income towards qualifying. So that would be about $250. And there's nothing there I could tell you qualify for.
Yeah, that's
Taxes
not
would be higher
doable
than that.
without a doubt.
So, but again, I'm really good at setting the roadmap and how to construct being ready to qualify as soon as possible if somebody's willing to do what it takes to do that.
I look back at some of the folks that may have started waiting a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, because they believed they had to have 2 years in the industry
Mhm.
before they could qualify. And that may be the scenario for the job that you're in, right? An independent contractor, like I was getting into real estate. That was the scenario that I was in. But the market has appreciated something fierce over the last 2 years,
Sure.
right? And with less than 3,500 homes in the Denver metro market right now. We're anticipating next year is going to be another kind of crazy year that way. Um, wow. If you think or believe that you have to wait a year or 2 or 6 months before you can even start the process, and let's have a conversation with Mitch. Let's see if we can do it. Because if you can pull the trigger in December, January, February of this year, you might be way ahead of the game as the market appreciates. Um,
Correct.
with the equity you could be walking into just by being willing to have the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds you of when you talked about the time frames. Let's say somebody was in one career, motorcycle sales and financing, and you ended up going into real estate, but you were the sales manager in real estate and you had a salary, completely different industry, completely different um, clientele base, but you're using your managerial slash sales skills for your job. We could use your income right away because it was a salary. Now, if you are salary plus, let's say, commission, which a lot of people are as well, and that's where a lot of people see the upside in making job changes and career changes, um, we can use that commission. A lot of people think it needs to be 2 years, but it only actually needs to be a minimum of 12 months, as long as we can get something from that employer that indicates that commission will continue into the future. So
Yeah.
some people think you have to wait 2 years for that as well, and it's less than that time frame. In that example, you went to a completely different career, different industry, and possibly you could interpret that as a different career. But my job and your job together would be to write a letter for the underwriter review to say, look, here's all my similarities of what I did previously in my position. I managed people. I was the salesperson. I'm combining those two skills with my new position. And that's why I got hired, actually, because I brought that to the table. So even though it may feel like there's not a lot of continuity there, there is. And I just help put that to light with people.
Yeah, there's some things in the lending world that I think are very black and white, and then there's some that are going to be open for interpretation. So
That's a great way to
just
put it.
because it was true for one person, it doesn't mean it's just a blanket true statement that it has to be that way for everybody.
Correct.
So go
Yeah,
ahead.
and you bring up a good point in all aspects of real estate slash mortgages and in life, I'm sure too. But you go to a party with some friends and they go, I did this. How'd you do that? Well, I just did it and it worked. And then I'll get that phone call and say, hey, my friend I talked to at a party. He did this or she did this and it worked. And I would say, but in your situation, it doesn't work. We don't know all the facts. And what are those facts? And people get a little frustrated. It's like, well,
Yeah,
how come they did it? It seems so simple. And the simplicity is it got worked out. The reality is there could be some dramatically different scenarios that allowed that one to go through and one possibly have to be pushed out a little while to get some seasoning around a job or commission income or what have you.
yeah.
So
I think the overarching theme of this here as we wrap up, but one, don't be afraid to have the conversation and the dialogue, right? If buying a home or buying the next home is something that's on your wish list and you're concerned about something, whether it's credit, whether it's a job change, whether it's income. Mitch, I've known you for a number of years now. I never once get the sentiment that you're a judgmental person, right? You're just gonna look at somebody and be like, oh well, you don't fit into this box, so we're just not gonna talk to you. We'll make fun of you behind your back. That's not who you are,
no,
right?
no, the box is very flexible and fluid, and that's how we have to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there are boxes that we have to work within, but I'm pretty good at the extended version of those boxes.
yeah,
I'll call it the Gumby version because we've got to find and dig hard to find those little nuggets that will make sense that an underwriter can say, you know what, that makes sense. It's not the normal traditional thing, but it makes sense and I can approve that.
if it's
So
not this box, maybe it's that box, right? But
correct.
but just
And
overall, encourage people to reach out, have the conversation with Mitch or with your lender about, well, gosh, is it possible? Because, well, this isn't exactly paint by numbers here, but people have gone through these routes before and kind of left the breadcrumb trail. And folks like Mitch, right? You're great at finding that and saying, okay, well, it worked here. Now we just have to help connect those dots for the underwriters so that this works.
correct.
Right.
And if there's a question, the beauty of at least the way my company is set up is I can pick up the phone and call my underwriter and say, here's my situation. Will this be something that would work? If so, how do you want me to construct this loan file? And we
Yeah.
have that team camaraderie to really want to try and help people buy a home if it makes sense and if it's affordable. So, and there's only one other thing I'd like to stress is if you're buying a home or you're currently buying a home and something comes up that you think your loan officer should know or may have impact on your loan, make that phone call and just talk about it. That loan officer's goal is to get you in the home.
Yeah.
It's not to say, I can't believe you just told me that, I'm going to go cancel your loan file. But that's the fear that some people have.
Yeah.
That information could be crucial in finding out up front to have a way to make sure that there's a plan B if needed to resolve that and still be able to buy the home without hiding it and then it getting found out about a day before closing.
Yeah.
So never be afraid to have that conversation, because we're all here to work together. And that's a big part of our relationship and trust that we build with our clients.
Yeah, without a doubt, right? And this goes back to, I think, the golden rule to some degree. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. And in this case, it's the lender who's lending the money so that you can purchase the house. That doesn't mean that, you know, they're going to come down with a hammer on you because you asked a question or you're trying to better your life scenario about making a job change, right? I mean, that
Correct.
Overall, I think that's why people make a job change, is to better their life situation, whether that's more income, more time off, more opportunities, whatever that looks like. So,
Sure.
you know, there's opportunities. Pick up the phone, call Mitch, right?
Exactly. And communication is key to everything, especially when you're buying a house and getting a home loan.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
And a healthy marriage.
Communication's important for a healthy marriage.
Without a doubt it is. So
I think another conversation, I could learn quite a bit from you. You've been married for significantly longer than I have, right? But that's okay. I got a late start.
Well, only 34 years. So
yeah. So you're 30 years ahead of me on the marriage thing.
There you go.
Coming up to 5 this summer.
It's the same foundation, Matt, like getting a home loan. The rules haven't changed.
Transparency, communication.
Exactly. Without a doubt. It's that simple.
Yeah. So, no, that's fantastic. So with that, Mitch, as we wrap this up, is there anything else that we didn't discuss or cover that maybe just a final thought here for people, who are watching the video?
No, I just think be open-minded. Don't think that you can't do something that maybe you can do, and don't shut off any good possibilities that might allow you to improve yourself from a standpoint of career change, financial change, environment of your employment change, which actually is happening a little bit these days. So just have the dialogue and conversation about it and find out what your options are, and then choose according to that. And everyone will take good care of you on the loan side and the real estate side, and then that person can make a good decision from there. So, and no question is not a smart question. They're always good, because then you know how to proceed from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We connect those dots. We find the roadmap. We can put the plan in place based on your unique scenario. And one of the things I share with clients all the time, right? We're going to start with the end in mind, because if I know you want to go to Disney World, well, great. There's a number of different ways we can get you there depending on your preferences, right? If you're scared to death to fly, and my only solution is to put you on an airplane, that's not going to be a very pleasant trip. Doesn't mean you can't go to Disney.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Good. Great.
As always, Mitch, it's so much appreciation for the time that you share with us on this. And I always find it so valuable. I love the dialogue, love the conversations.
As do I. Thank you. It keeps me on my toes. It gets me to think even more creatively if need be when these situations come up with our clients. And I just enjoy sharing information so people can make better decisions when it comes to getting good financing and buying a house, which is very important.
Yeah, without a doubt. So cool. Well, thanks again, Mitch.
Thank you.
And for those watching, let me know what topics you want to hear from Mitch on the next episode. And, we'll connect with Mitch again in the new year in 2022.
Yes.
Here we go.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Be safe. And we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Sounds great. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Matt. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.